A detective sergeant with secrets, a horrific murder, and a rapist, all set against a Belfast backdrop, ensnare us from page 1 of A Nice Place to Die, the de Maurier-winning first novel by Joyce Woollcott. Today we'll get to chat with the author about the D.S. Ryan McBride series. Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews. I'm Sharon Lynn, and welcome to you, Joyce.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad you could make it. So let's just jump right into my questions. I loved these books. First of all, I'm more of a cozy person usually, and these are procedural and some pretty scary situations, but they are just so fascinating that you can't put them down once you pick them up. So,
Thank you.
So you are from Northern Ireland, but now you live in Canada. Can you tell us about your background?
Yes, I was born in Belfast and I lived there. I went to art college there and then emigrated to Canada, to Toronto, and I got a job in broadcasting as a designer and ended up working there at the Canada's largest broadcaster for many years, and ended up being a director of design there for Off Air. But I always loved reading. I think we all do, and I love writing. So I thought when I was starting to get, I've worked all these years, it's time to leave. I thought, well, we'll do some travel, and then maybe I'll try and write a book. Because, my heart could fit. Well, of course, it's really hard. But I just had an idea. The very first book I wrote is still in a drawer, as I think happens to everyone. But I enjoyed the process. And then I find that most people who are writers or have writing in their background are really great writers, or you want to write or you love to read. You can, everybody pretty much like that can write. It's just that writing a novel, as I learned to my distress, is a little bit more complex than writing a nice couple of paragraphs and scenes. And I knew that I needed to learn about the formatting and the process. So I went to, did some classes down in a university in Toronto, or Ryerson University, and they were fantastic, learning how to format and what typeface to use and how to put conversations and dialogue in properly. And that started sort of the ball rolling for me, you go, oh, first person, third person, what is this? Anyway, so having sort of gotten some of that under my belt, I got a mentor from the Crime Writers of Canada, and a writer here, Kathy Astolfo, who read over the manuscript that I had written, that first manuscript called it Abducted, and suggested some bits and pieces. She was terrific. And then she said at the end of it, why don't you enter it in the Crime Writers of Canada Unpublished Awards? You might as well. So I did, and I was longlisted. My very first attempt. And
wow, that is impressive.
Yeah. So I couldn't believe it, actually. I was so thrilled. And I'm sure too, with anything, any kind of recognition outside your own, relatives and friends, it's very encouraging. So that started me on the path. And I enrolled in the Humber School for Writers. I did a postgraduate year-long with the Canadian writer Bobby Rottenberg, and I did a summer course there too. And then I started writing A Nice Place to Die, which I thought to myself, the first book, Abducted, was a kidnapping in Mexico, and it's sort of like the right word, well, I don't know anything about that, but it just was, I got this idea, and Mexico seemed to be the right place for it. And I was on a cruise with my relative, my cousins, one of whom is in the police and was in the police. He's retired in Northern Ireland. And he was just telling stories, and everybody was so funny. And I thought to myself, why am I writing or trying to write books that have no relevance to me or my background? Not that, And so I thought, I'm going to write a detective. I'm going to write a police story. And that's where A Nice Place to Die came from, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and it is set in Belfast there. Yeah, when I first wrote Death Takes a Bath, which takes place in Bath, England.
Yes, it's
I was
fabulous.
originally like, I should set a book in Italy where I've never been. I used to live in England. I'm like, I should set a book
Yeah,
where
yeah,
I've lived. It makes
yeah.
more sense. It becomes
Well,
a
it makes it a little bit easier, doesn't it, Sharon? I mean, it gives you a little bit of a sense of it, of the place that you're writing about, which, I mean, I think you and I both agree. I mean, maybe not everyone, but that having that extra little connection to a place, I think helps when you're writing setting and
yeah.
atmosphere like that, as it does in your books, they're fabulous. And you can tell you've been there.
Well, and just we've already touched on a couple of questions that I wanted to talk about. But that one especially, I asked, you have the character of the partner
Ryan.
to D.S. McBride,
Yeah,
Billy, and
yeah.
I said Billy's hilarious, and again, I think this goes back to being of the area. People in Ireland are funny,
Oh,
so.
yeah. And they don't mean to be. I mean, they're not trying to be funny. They just simply are inherently funny. And I think you were asking about, you know, how come they are so funny and they get along together. And I had to make Ryan a little more serious because he's my protagonist and my main character, and he's a bit of a womanizer, and he wants to get the job done. He's very focused. And then Billy is a good policeman too, but he's got a family and he's got other interests, and I made Billy a smart but slightly naive sidekick in the sense of just a gentleness, because he's got his kids, he's got 3 girls and a kind of a slightly domineering wife. And he's always going to his birthday parties and buying presents for his daughters. And Ryan's always giving him a hard time. And I wanted to show that kind of yin yang, that push between the 2 partners. I mean, they get on really well, but Ryan's always he's calling him a house husband and calling him all these things. But I loved the idea, and I did bring that little bit of push because Ryan really is in some ways a little bit jealous of Billy, even though he hardly acknowledges it himself. And Billy is a little bit jealous of Ryan too, because he gets to be the bachelor. He gets to go out with these girls and go to bars and everything. And Billy's kind of not. So they have a nice, a kind of a good relationship that way. I think they work well together.
Yeah, oh no, it's beautiful. They're just like the perfect foils for each other. And you can tell that even when they're ribbing each other, that there's a respect there. So you both got together beautifully.
Thank you.
And then the other thing that we already touched on is I was wondering how you had a resource for what are police procedures in Belfast, and you just said something about that.
Yes, I think that's always a frightening, scary thing. When I first started, I thought, because my cousin had been in the police, but he had been a constable and not for a long time. That he had some really funny stories, and he wasn't in a very dangerous. Well, obviously in Northern Ireland, the police are kind of dangerous, but he wasn't faced with too many situations that were life-threatening. I have other relatives who were actually quite tangentically or whatever to the side of it. But yeah, my cousin just started telling me these stories about things and friends and other, and I thought, you know what, that's perfect. I should just use that. And of course, that's all I need, right? But you'll know too, once you start writing a book, you get like about the first 4 pages, you go, hang on a minute, how did they do it? What happens now? I'm going, my poor cousin, he's going, well, I was just a constable, I don't know. So I was very fortunate. I kind of appealed. My cousin has a friend who's a writer in the UK, and Kate Charles, and she writes older medieval kind of mysteries, ecclesiastical mysteries. But she was in the Crime Writers what is it, the one in England. And she said,
Writers
I
Association.
said to my cousin, could you ask her, does she know of any resources, policemen in the UK? That's my problem, right? And so actually she did. And she said, well, this chap's advertised in our newsletter saying he'd be happy to help any writers who want some assistance. And she said, I can't vouch for him, but so I thought, well, you know what? He can't vouch for me either. So I'm just going to contact him. And I contacted him and oh my goodness, this guy, he was Detective Inspector Markham. He was like all over the UK. He was a boss in all kinds of major crime things. And he also sat on a couple of committees for Northern Ireland. And he was also in the EU policing. So it's like this man was sent from somewhere. Plus, he like really likes books, and I said, "Well, I wonder if I could ask you maybe to have a look at the odd patch." He said, "Oh, just send me the whole manuscript. I'll read it." And he read the whole thing when I was supposed to die, and he gave me, all these different solutions, suggestions and things. But in general, he said, "Oh no, because of course, Sharon, we have the resource of the internet and." Good thing that we do, because I wrote this basically just before and just during COVID, and there's no way I could have gone home anyway. So all of the research had to really basically be anything I didn't know as far as strategic things. I had to look up, or I had to get books, or I had to do this and go onto maps and things. And even though I lived in Belfast for many years, the city, as you know, changes. As my books are set in 2016, 2017 as well. So, it's been quite a few years and things change. So as far as policing is concerned, a typical question I had for him was, I was writing Blood Relations, and I had Ryan, D.S. Ryan, he needed to recheck a piece of evidence that had been taken from the crime scene because something had come up. And he suddenly thought, wait a minute, didn't I see something, but it was too small. And now I have to go back because I don't think it was logged, but it wasn't investigated. So he has to go to the evidence locker. And I'm going, where would they have the evidence locker? I know these are stupid things, but I didn't want to say it was in the basement of they have a lot of stuff. And I go, well, where would it be? So I emailed Matt and I said, where would they normally have, like in Belfast, have a big? He said, oh, they probably have it off site in a warehouse or something like that. And then he proceeded to tell me how all the different pieces of evidence would be stored, like clothes would be in folded paper bags, sealed at the top. Knives would be in round carriers with the see-through thing. And when you go and look at something, you have to ask for it. It's brought to the front. The sergeant on call here will write your name and why you want it, and then they will open it. You will examine it, and when you're finished, you take it back. He reseals it, puts your name and all the dates and everything. So all of these things, I think, not that I want to bore readers, but I think they give a little bit more authenticity to things. That you've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than like TV shows where it's like, yeah, head on back, and they're just tearing boxes apart. And
what was it you were looking for? The toothpick? What? I'll just bring it up. Yeah. And another thing it always says really funny, where you see Vera walking up to a crime scene, because I sort of not that it's like Vera or Shetland or Tana French, God forbid, or anything like that, but I try to keep it that kind of. I mean, you were saying about cozy, you were saying in mine being police procedural, but I don't put a lot of violence on the screen and not a lot of sex or anything. Well, like romance, let's say, like that. A little bit of this, a little bit spicy, but it's not really on the screen. And I don't, there's descriptions of scenes, but I never really feel the need to describe the murder in any detail or anything like that. I figure, well, no, I don't want to do that. But, it's bad enough having to investigate the thing. But anyway, so Vera will often walk up to a crime scene, and her hapless sergeant will lift the tape, and she goes under with her raincoat, and off she goes and investigates. Well, you can't do that. Nobody does that. So as it says, you have to sign in to the crime scene, doesn't matter who you are, and they take your name and when you signed in, and then they sign you out again. And that's how it's done, because you can't have like random people walking under, anyway. So I thought that was interesting. So that's another part of Nice Place to Die. He has to sign in, he has to wear booties. You see these all these different people swanning about it, and all these CSIs have their suits on, with the booties.
Yeah, and then the detectives are just
they're
like
walking around, they've got all their hair all over the place, and they're going, oh, I don't know. And I think, well, why would the CSIs be wearing full protection and you're just walking around in your, in your suit or something? Anyway, these are all small things, but they're kind of funny,
well, and that they add to that just reality when you're in the scene. So,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate them. Okay, let's we've gone all over the place. I don't even know where
I
I am.
know. Why did I write a male when a male detective when I'm a female non-detective?
Definitely not a male.
Well, that's actually, I like that question, because and I said that I was talking to you about this, and I said, in many ways, I don't believe this mantra about write what you know. Well, it's not that I don't believe this perfect if you have a huge knowledge of things and places and you want to write about that and your help, but I don't think that should be the only criteria to write a book. If you want to write a book about something, I don't see why you can't do it, especially these days with the resources that we have available to us. And
Well,
if you do,
I had an author friend who said, don't write what you write what you want to know.
yes,
And,
yeah, that's
just
perfect. And there's so many writers out there who do write what they know, and it's fabulous, and they have a really an excellent jump on everyone. But again, you're looking at writers who write historical novels. They haven't been in
right.
London and Dickens area and all of these things. Like, so as far as I'm concerned, if you are going to write something you know nothing about, then make sure that you do investigate, you do everything you need to do to make it work. And also, with me not being a man, I was thinking about that in a way. I think in the back of my mind, worry that if I wrote a female detective, and I love Karen Perry, the Val McDermott lady, the Tana French writing, I love. Ellie Griffiths writes a female investigator. She does the anthropological sites or whatever. And there's a whole bunch of really fabulous. Helen Mirren played that one years ago on the BBC one. And there's so many great female detectives, but I worried in a way if I wrote a female, I would make her too much like myself. I would put too much of my own personality, because you can't help it. When you're writing about someone, it's really difficult not to be inserting yourself to some extent into that personality, right? So yeah, I thought if I write a male, at least I have that. There's a little bit of
distance. And
I can also give him vulnerabilities that I would like a man to have. They often have, right? So I think I can make him the guy I want him to be. Plus, he could have some issues, and also because of my team, I have a team in there. I have D.S. Rand McBride and Billy Lamont, his partner, who's again he's a foil for Ryan. But I also have a really strong female in Moira, who is dedicated. She's the one that keeps them all in a way in line. She's Rand's her boss, but she keeps him in line, slaps him around from time to time, and punches him in the arm. And then there's Derek, he's the techie guy, and he's a bit of obviously he's going to be nerdy because they always are, but he's totally has no idea of any sensitivity or anything. So he's totally not sensitive. Moira is very sensitive, but strong. Ryan's like this solid investigator, kind of serious guy. And Billy's just this guy who's funny and just wants to get the job done. And so I think they're a good little team. And that team, as they are within the police station, each time are starting to report to different chief inspectors. So Gervin is kind of slightly scary chief inspector. And then they start processing towards a new chief inspector who comes in towards the end of the second book. And therein lies the issue if the third book comes along, because I really like that new lady. I wrote a new a woman this time, a woman chief inspector who's got no filters, and it's and she's a really fun character, you know. So kind of would like to write a bit more about her. Who knows? Maybe maybe in a year or two, you know, I'll get started on that. But it's hard to know.
Yeah, I think everybody would like to read it. All right, so A Nice Place to Die and Blood Relations have sort of a bisected timeline. We start with the murder and Ryan moves forward, and then we jump back in time and kind of see the things that are being stacked in place before the murder. And it's kind of like watching two trains on the same track, just heading towards one another, because you know what's going to happen, and you're like, no, don't do it. And so first of all, just it's a great technique, and I love it. But how do you keep it all straight in your head? How do you do one character at a time, or how do you do that?
Yeah, you know, it's not easy. I do. I kind of, they play off one another, but I do one character at a time in a way. I have Ryan's story and the main plot in my head, so I know what I want to have happen there. You know, I know not completely, but I have a sense of where the story is going. You know, how he finds a body, why he finds it, or you know, how it affects him, because it does affect him, and Ryan has a terrible surprise when he's down in the crime scene, and how that works throughout the book with the new little things that come up to surprise him throughout the investigation. So because the body is found right at the beginning of the book, for me, I wanted that person, the woman, the young woman, I wanted readers to feel for her, to understand her story a little more. And also because of making the reader read about her in the first person, like she has a point of view, she has a voice. What I did was I had the book start with her being found, and then he moves on to the beginning of the investigation and the shock that he gets after like the third chapter. And then we move to her, the victim. And it's actually not a very long background. I mean, it's probably, we start her story about 4 months earlier. We meet her and we find out where she's going, what she does. And then we meet her boyfriend that she turned, you know, so there are a lot of red herrings that go along with her story. And I keep her inserting into the main story up to a point about halfway, I can't remember now, halfway or 3/4 of the way through the book. And then we collide, the storylines collide when she is murdered. And then take it away, Ryan, you're on your own, you're now investigating this murder. But and in Blood Relations, I kind of, you know, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, there was only a very small kickback in Blood Relations where we meet one of the victims, and I tell his story because I thought he was such an interesting character. But as soon as he meets his untimely demise, his friend, his partner, Gracie, who I loved writing, she takes over as a voice. So I'm not having both their voices. So he has a voice, Dinger has a voice. And when that happens, Gracie's voice goes on top of Dinger's voice and she takes it away. Mm-hmm. So then we have her voice, we have the bad guy, Rupert's voice, and we have Ryan's voice. And now there's only 3. I would never want to do more than 3, preferably less, but sometimes you just have to involve the reader in the goings on inside someone's head. And that's the only way I can think of doing it, actually.
Well, it's so much fun to read. I just really, like I said, I really enjoy these. Um, so let's see. I've
You're
gotten so
doing
out of
really
order on my
well.
questions. Okay, let's talk about you're going to do a new project.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's what has actually superseded the third novel in this series, just for a while anyway. I was kind of thinking I wanted to write a new protagonist.
Just a second.
Yes.
There's a problem with Apple Music. Why are you starting? Sorry about that.
Oh, you're okay. I thought I'd like to write a new protagonist because again, it's just like Ryan and writing a male or a female. Ryan came into my head as this is the person I'm going to write. He just kind of came, I'm here. So this guy, the new detective, ex-detective, I kind of felt he was interesting and I want to write about him. And I love writing setting and atmosphere and things like that. So I really wanted to write something about a place outside of Belfast that's more alone and desolate. So this one up to now I'm calling a desolate grave. And I'm just writing it right now. I've done a sort of a first draft of it. But it's about what is it? I have a thing. I have a little read up. Can I read the little thing of it? After his wife is killed with a bullet meant for him, Detective Inspector Conor Adair retires early and flees to his holiday cottage on Kellenus Island off Northern Ireland's Antrim coast. He desperately needs to come to terms with the role he played in his wife's death. What he wants is peace and quiet to work on his paintings and time to think. Instead, he gets Anna, an attractive, enigmatic woman renter nearby, and a new case. 3 years earlier, 2 teenage girls went missing from the island and he's asked to find them. Then Anna disappears. So now you have 3 women missing. And so get to make up an island, yeah. They're going to make up an island that's south of Rathlin Island is a big island off the coast of Northern Ireland. So I made Kellenus Island south of that, near Cushendun, and so it's been fun writing it. I just write it, see what happens.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, finally, where can our fans find you on social media and what website?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I have a website that they can find me if they want to email or anything like that. It's just my name. It's jwoollcott.com. That's pretty easy. And I'm on Twitter, Joyce Woollcott. I don't know how you do that. I'm very Luddite kind of. I'm on Facebook as well. They can just type in my name. I think that works. And Instagram, but Instagram's been kind of ticky. I don't know what's going on with Instagram. It keeps telling me to go away, and I go away and then back, and it lets me in, and then it's have to go away again. I don't know. It's just, but anyway, yeah, that's my.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, and thank all of you for listening, and we will see you next time on Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews.
Thank you, Sharon. That was fun.
That was fun.